Interesting stat. He raped the defensive player of the year.
Whoa.
Dog.
BRB Blazer.
So we got DeVante
Parker,
who's my guy in real life, and he's my guy in fantasy.
That's pretty much his whole life is revolving around.
And you're thinking, oh, but my boy T, you just said deplete on wide receiver 7. How could he be your guy? Well, he's still going to ball out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
gonna buy that, buddy.
Let me hear it.
But, yeah, DeVante Parker, he's my guy. I mean, and I just think, looking at some of the early rankings from the experts or just people on Instagram or whatnot, he was being ranked in the top 10 of wide receivers overall, which even as a Dolphins fan, I thought that was kind of outrageous. I mean, I do think he's super talented. One of my favorite players in the league, obviously. He's on my favorite team. But top 10, I think that's a stretch. If he can do it again this second year, then I think we could be talking about top 10 potentially. But, I mean, the guy is super talented. 128 targets last year. Just a little bit over 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. Like I said, he led the AFC in receiving yards, 4 wide receivers. Led the AFC in receiving touchdowns as well with those 9 right there. So you get Fitzmagic. Hopefully, me personally as a Dolphins fan, I think Anthony would agree as well. I kind of hope Fitzmagic just stays the quarterback the whole year. Maybe towards the end of the year we throw Tua in there, get him some reps. But, with Tua's hip, I'm kind of just praying that they kind of just nurse him, especially with this whole COVID coronavirus thing. There's no rush to throw him out there. I don't think we're going to be a playoff team realistically anyway, so no reason to throw Tua out there and get him hurt. But if Fitzmagic stays the quarterback, we get Chan Gailey, who was actually the offensive coordinator with Fitzmagic for 2 years when they were on the Jets. These were those years that Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker had some pretty big years. But the number one wide receiver in those offenses for those 2 years, 173 targets, which I think is pretty outrageous. I think that's a lot, actually. But then 123 targets. So, 128 targets last year for DeVante Parker. If you're telling me the baseline for the wide receiver 1 in Gailey's offense was 173, 122, I'm okay with pacing DeVante Parker at like 115, 120 targets. And, he's not a big PPR guy anyways. He's a big touchdown guy, 8th highest yards per reception. And he's a contested catch guy. So 400 receiving yards on contested catches. That was the second most, just behind Kenny Golladay. He's like a big body guy where, you just throw it up to him. He doesn't have to be open for him to go out there and make a play. 22 tight window receptions, which led the NFL. Like I said, I feel like Fitzmagic just kind of, would chuck it up to him and let DeVante Parker go up there and do his thing. And like I said, he doesn't need a big target share. Only 128 last year. So if that number falls back down to like 120, I mean, he only had 21% target share in terms of the team, and that was actually tied 32nd for wide receivers with guys like Kenny Golladay. And we're all pretty high on Kenny Golladay. And, when we talk about Kenny Golladay, we talk about how he doesn't need a ton of targets. He might only get you 65 to 70 catches, but he's going to get you, over 1,000 yards. And, he's got that 10-plus touchdown upside. So there's one reason why I like him. And then just another thing why, he's my guy here. Interesting stat. He raped the defensive player of the year.
Dog. How did he manage to do that? And then he still managed to man up and be able to guard him after getting raped? How do you do that?
So I just thought this was interesting. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore from the Patriots, he wins defensive player of the year. Pretty much locked down all year. No one was doing anything. But DeVante Parker, that game against the Patriots, which was a crucial game for the Patriots. If they beat the Dolphins in Week 17 in New England, they would have had the second seed, I think, so they would have had a first-round bye. If they lost, they got the third seed, which ultimately they ended up losing to the Titans. But 8 receptions on 11 targets, 137 yards for DeVante Parker that game against the Patriots. Now, not all of those came on Stephon Gilmore. He only lined up on 40 of the 45 routes, so majority of them came on him. But 7 receptions on 9 targets for 119 yards. That's what came on Stephon Gilmore. And that was actually the most yards given up by Stephon Gilmore since he joined the Patriots back in 2017. So, I mean, if he could do it against the defensive player of the year, I mean, the guy's obviously talented. I think one thing that is kind of tricky when gauging him is that, last year, before he kind of really broke out, it was him and Preston Williams, 1A, 1B. I think they were pretty much neck and neck in terms of targets, yardage, and I think Preston Williams might have had a handful more touchdowns, but they're pretty much 1A and 1B down that stretch. But I think that second half, I think the chemistry and the rapport between him and Fitzmagic just really, blossomed. I think, going into this year, I'm not sleeping on Preston Williams. I think the guy's super talented still. He's probably going to be the number 2 on this offense, but I think DeVante Parker really solidified himself as the number one in that offense. And, he's the go-to guy in this passing attack. And like I said, he's one of those guys where he doesn't have to be open. And I think Fitzmagic learned that, and he trusts in him. Like, hey, I can throw it up to this guy, and he's going to go up, and he's going to come down with it. So, yeah, love me some DeVante Parker.
If I didn't know any better, that's his guy. If I didn't know any better.
That is his guy. All right, you want to move on to the next one? You got anything else for DeVante Parker? You want to speak on that?
I mean, I agree.
Do you love it?
I mean, I think he's finally playing into where he got drafted. So,
yeah, DeVante Parker, draft that guy.
Put him on your team. Put him on your team.
Draft that guy.
Hey, draft that guy, Okay, let's move on. Man, that clip was informative, huh? Well, there's plenty more right here if you click that. Also, go ahead and subscribe right there.